everyone loves the idea of automation at the moment. The idea of saving time, scaling faster, do less work, make loads more money. But look, the reality is, and this is where like not many people talk about, is that 90% of automation will fail probably within the first 3 months. And so, you know, and this isn't because of technology either. This is because of the business. And this is something I want to talk about today and why a lot of automation you see, a lot of these people selling complicated automation work, ultimately they're going to break, they're going to stall, and they'll get abandoned. And this is what you can actually do differently so you can compound your value with AI and automation over time. So there's this myth, and I think that, and this is, we see this on YouTube and LinkedIn and Instagram where you can just build an automation, you can set it and forget about it. And so you see these really, really complicated NAM workflows or Zapier workflows, Make, whatever it is. But that's just not how business works. Businesses change, offers evolve, clients come and go, systems get updated. So when your automation touches any part of that moving ecosystem, it eventually breaks. So if you think about it, say like you update your CRM fields, okay, well, your Zapier stops running. You switch from Google to Notion, great, the workflow collapses completely. You rebrand your website, okay, well, the webhook dies in the background. Automation is kind of like plumbing, and I know lots of people have used this analogy and reference before. They don't break because of the pipes, they break because someone keeps moving the sink, right? So if your business is changing faster than your automation system can adapt, it's not sustainable. That's the first reason that most automation fails. They're built around tools and they're not built around process, like a process and a system. So again, anyone you see selling automation workflows, typically those workflows are not going to last very long. You might go and pay three, four, £5,000 or dollars for an automation that in 6 months' time is not going to work because it's not adapted to your specific business. So most people start automation from the wrong end as well. They start with the tool and not the problem that you're looking to solve. So you'll hear people say, "Well, I want to use automation to automate my proposals." Okay, well, you never hear people actually asking, "Do I even have a consistent proposal process in the first place?" So if you haven't got that proposal process, what are you trying to fix? It just sounds fancy and it sounds like you're going to save quite a lot of time. If you automate if you automate chaos, you're just going to get faster chaos, right? And this is what I call tool first thinking. It's where people pick a shiny new platform before they've actually mapped the logic of the workflow. And we see this quite a lot in like the software space and the SaaS space. So, you know, people just see this new piece of software and they think, I must have it, right? And it's with the same with AI. I must have this new AI software, not actually looking at the reason for it and the value that it brings. So, for example, if you can't write down your process on paper, you have no business automating it because automation is just logic written down in code format. It's the and if that logic is like fuzzy and doesn't make any sense, the automation will fail. So when people ask me, well, why their workflow stopped working, 9 times out of 10, it's because the logic was never clear to begin with. And so you really, really have to think about what are you automating and what is the point of you doing this? What is the value you're going to get from it? What is the ROI of this particular automation, this logic, and also the system you're using? Because the tools will change, your CRM will change, your payment provider will change, your website will update. If you're a fast moving business, these things inevitably will change. So there's a third reason automation fails, and that's because no one owns them. So in most small businesses, the person who builds the workflow, usually the founder, some curious team member, they set it up once and it moves on. So they spend a load of time, a load of money. Even if you get someone else to build it for you, again, who's looking after it? Who's maintaining it? Unless you're getting the person you've paid for to maintain that automation and it's hosted on their own infrastructure, at some point, it's going to get neglected. So If someone leaves, okay, well then who maintains it? What if an API key expires? What if a new hire overwrites something? And now no one knows where the automation lives, what it connects to, or what it even does. I have seen companies, literally seen companies where an automation just stops working for 2 months and they only notice when clients started complaining. So this is another big reason. It's like, who is looking after this automation, or who is looking after your AI in your business? So if you don't have clear documentation or ownership or accountability, automation and AI will ultimately die. So before you automate any task, who owns this system? Who checks it weekly? Who updates it when we change a process? If the answer is no one, the automation is basically on borrowed time. So, and finally, the fourth reason is a lot of automation that people are building and that people are selling at the moment don't have a business outcome tied to them. So they're built out of curiosity rather than being built out of like value and intention. So again, I reference a lot of the stuff that's out there at the moment and a lot on YouTube and LinkedIn. They're built, they're built because it's like, oh, can we do this? Can you do something? Just because you can do it doesn't mean it's going to be any good. So, like, how are you measuring that success? So I saw an automation recently on YouTube where it was like someone had automated a daily update for someone's calendar. Now that sounds really good in theory. So like every morning the founder would get a an email that would say like these are all the meetings on your to-do list, right? But that sounds great. But what about when all your meetings change and move and things get moved around and it doesn't adapt to that, right? So if you're then the founder who's got like a really busy schedule and something's changed or something isn't going forward, you then have just a cluttered up inbox with just more emails that you're not sticking to. So again, just because something sounds like a good idea doesn't mean it is a good idea. So every workflow and every time you're using AI or an automation, there you should have a clear ROI statement. Something along the lines of like, this saves me X amount of hours a week on admin. This eliminates X amount of a month of manual data entry. This improves our lead response time by 50%. There should be tangible value that's tied to that automation and AI that you're using. And if you can't see that, then there's likely that either it's you're going to go back to some of the problems I spoke about earlier, that it's just going to die, people aren't going to look after it, and it's ultimately you're just going to waste money on it. So if you can't quantify the result, you can't justify the time it takes to maintain it, then automation is just like employees, right? If you don't give them a clear job description and outcome, they'll just sit there and costing you a bunch of time and money. So how do you build automations that last? So if 90% of automation is failing, how do you make sure that yours doesn't? So here's a simple framework that you can use. And it's really, really simple. And it starts, first of all, with mapping first. So I mentioned it earlier, write your process down step by step in plain English. Don't even think about all the different tools that are out there and all the pieces of software. If the process that you have doesn't make sense on paper, or you can't write that process down, it will not make sense in an automation. Secondly, design around logic, not tools. So again, I talk about the tools. Ask what needs to happen next instead of what can I automate next. And that's a really, really important, like, logical question you have to ask yourself as a business owner. What needs to happen in this system or this process, rather than just going to say, well, I'm just going to automate as much as I can. You need to document everything. So keep a single source of truth, whether that be Notion, Google Doc, whatever it might be, that lists every workflow, trigger, and owner. There should, especially if you're a slightly bigger business. If you're a smaller business, the documentation may not matter so much. But as you start to scale and grow, if someone isn't accountable for it and owning that workflow and owning that AI, things are going to get pretty messy quite quickly. And so that brings me on to the fourth point, which is assign ownership. So someone should own the automation like they own a KPI. that should be someone's job on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis to maintain that and look after it, and that's their sole responsibility. And that all there should be an offboarding process that if that person then leaves, who then looks after it and who is accountable for it. The next is review. So review quarterly and review like every 3 months, do a 30-minute like health check. Does it still work? Does it still matter? Can it be simplified? Can we improve it? These things are really important. If you just turn it on and leave it, you will be really, really disappointed in whoever you're working with as your automation and AI partner, that it isn't doing the right thing. So remember, like automation is alive in some respect, and it should grow with your business, and it should enable you to, yes, do things more efficiently and more effectively. But if you do neglect it, it will ultimately die. So I think there's lots of people just assume that automation, we can automate everything and we just leave it and brilliant and we're just going to be so much better at our job. When in reality, what happens is you get, you become more stressed with it, right? Because you're trying to do, it's not working, who looks after it, and all these things pile on. And then you realize you wasted, $5,000 or pounds implementing this automation that is just sat there on someone's cloud infrastructure or whatever, and it's doing absolutely nothing. So yeah, the problem isn't that the automation doesn't work, okay? It's that people treat it like a magic wand instead of a system for your business. So where my business is now, we're looking at like, rather, technology is moving so quickly, right? People will just be able to automate anything in future. But actually where the real skill is now is around like looking at the business and picking apart the business and understanding, is this automation, is this AI system right for your business? If you start with clarity, ownership, and outcome, you will be in the 10% of businesses whose automation and AI actually scales with them and not just wasting a bunch of money. Cool. Look, if you found this information useful, subscribe to more videos. I'm going to be diving a little bit more into kind of real business cases of AI and automation. I'm not going to be selling super complicated workflows and things that will break in 3 months' time, right? It's all about making sure that you're using AI and automation effectively and properly for your business. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the biggest ROI opportunities in your business using AI, and that one's going to change how you think about your entire workflow strategy. See you in the next video.